6 years ago this week, back in 1994, one of the top hits in the USA was When Can I See You by a superstar singer and songwriter who says writing songs for others is easy. It's writing songs for himself that's hard. I'll have details and that top hit after this.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem on Casey's Top 40. Now we're up to the latest hit by Babyface, a super singer, songwriter, and producer who says his marriage must have been written in the stars because nothing could keep him and his bride-to-be apart. Kenneth Edmonds, the man who goes by the professional name Babyface, used to be one of the most eligible bachelors in music. He's talented, wealthy, handsome, and he was very available for a long time. It wasn't that Babyface wasn't looking, or women weren't willing to go out with him. Quite the contrary. It's just that none of these romances really clicked. Babyface was looking for the woman who was one in a million, the very special woman who would be his wife. Well, in 1990, that very woman walked into his life. Babyface traveled from his home base in Atlanta to Los Angeles to cast parts for the video to his big hit Whip Appeal. One of the people who auditioned for Babyface was a beautiful woman named Tracy. He picked her for one of the parts. But just before the video shoot, she came down with chicken pox and had to be replaced. Months later, Babyface was back in L.A. casting another video, trying to think of a woman who could play the main part. And that's when he thought of Tracy again. He knew she'd be perfect. There was just one problem. He had no idea where she was. Neither he nor anyone in his organization remembered her last name. That's when fate stepped in. The very next day, Babyface was walking down an L.A. street, and he couldn't believe his eyes. Walking down the very same street was that lost woman of his dreams, Tracy. He walked up to her and said hello, and quickly got her phone number and cast her in the video. From there, romance bloomed, and in 1992, Babyface and Tracy decided that they were meant to spend the rest of their lives together, and they got married. This week, the singer whose romantic fate seemed to have been written in the stars continues to shine brightly on our survey, rising 2 notches to number 15. Here's Babyface with And Our Feelings.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. We're counting down the 40 biggest hits in the 50 states. Well, now we're up to the latest smash for Babyface. Babyface, the most successful songwriter of the 90s. A man who says he still hasn't written what he considers the great song of his life. Babyface is one of the most honored songwriters and producers of the rock era. But despite his massive success writing huge chart hits for Whitney Houston, Madonna, and so many others, he just doesn't feel he's yet come up with a song that will become one for the ages. Babyface says, quote, "I don't mean to downplay what I've accomplished, but I know I can always do better. People ask, where do you go from here? And the answer is, you try to keep growing." Babyface says he has a goal in mind. For him, the best song ever written is the Beatles' classic Yesterday. Babyface says for him, it's the perfect song. There's nothing he could do to it that would make it any better. He says, quote, "I still haven't written a song I can be totally proud of the way Paul McCartney can be proud of Yesterday. That's what keeps me going. The dream that I can someday write something so good I can say to myself, this is my yesterday." Well, he may not think he's written a song like Yesterday, but millions of fans have fallen in love with his ballads.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to Babyface, a superstar singer, songwriter, and producer from Indianapolis whose career got its start when he was only 11 years old. Kenny Babyface Edmonds grew up in a family of 6 brothers. From as early as he can remember, his older brothers were always involved in music, putting together vocal and doo-wop groups that would sing on street corners and at parties. Kenny dreamed of doing what his brothers did, and he got his chance much earlier than he expected. You see, his oldest brother Melvin had put together a band that was having lots of success playing dances at high schools and at private parties. They were scheduled to play at a high school dance for hundreds of students at a local school. But the band's lead singer came down with a cold so bad, the only sound he could make was a rasp. None of the other members could sing well enough to take his place. The only singer they could think of who knew all the words to the songs was Melvin's 11-year-old brother, Kenny. Kenny had a fine, high preteen voice like a young Michael Jackson, and so out of desperation, they asked him to sit in for that show. It was his big chance, and he did his family proud. He sang so well that his brother started using him at all of his shows. And by the time Kenny was in his teens, he was performing with several different bands throughout the Midwest. These days, Kenny works on his own as one of the hottest singers, songwriter, and producers around.
American Top 20.
We're on our way to the #1 song of the decade. Finishing the decade all the way up at number 3 is another collaboration that teams up multiple Grammy winners. British legend Eric Clapton, who collected 13 Grammys, and American producer Babyface, who's walked away with 6 statues. Together, they teamed up on a song included on the soundtrack to the John Travolta film called Phenomenon.
America's Top Hits.
6 years ago this week, back in 1994, one of the top hits in the USA was by a singer whose super producer Babyface is called a living, breathing musical instrument. This woman began her career as a featured singer on the Babyface hit, Give You My Heart. Babyface says he wasn't just struck by the power of her singing, but by the way that when he'd give her a phrase to sing, she could do it exactly the same every time. Her ear was perfect. Like a musical instrument, she could keep repeating the same note, which inspired Babyface to write and produce a string of hits for her, including the song that was one of the top hits in the USA 6 years ago this week. Here's Toni Braxton with Breathe Again.
America's Top Hits.
6 years ago this week, back in 1994, one of the top hits in the USA was by a superstar singer and songwriter who says writing songs for others is easy. It's writing songs for himself that's hard. His name is Kenneth Edmonds, though the world knows him best as Babyface. Babyface says he's always trying to write songs for himself. He'll come up with something that he thinks works. He'll start recording it, and then he'll realize that the song would be a lot better performed by Whitney Houston or Toni Braxton or any of the other stars who have recorded Babyface's songs. He gives away so many songs, only a handful are left for him, which he says is one reason there are often years between his albums. 6 years ago this week, Babyface had one of the top hits in the USA with a song that worked for him and him alone. Here's When Can I See You? From 6 years ago this week, that was one of the top hits in the USA. Babyface and When Can I See You? I'm Kasem.